What has happened to the tight end? Where are my tight ends? I get flashes of Gronkowski and George Kittle, but outside of that, this position is almost becoming more instinct than the fullback position. I mean, tight end is like a hybrid position. Yeah, the characteristics are of an offensive lineman, kind of larger than a wide receiver, but a bit slower than a wide receiver. Usually has jumping abilities like Jimmy Graham or Antonio Gates. Sometimes they're used as an H-back to block, like good old Clint Didier from the Redskins or Billy Joe Dupree from the Cowboys of the late 70s and 80s. Then you got the old school Dave Casper and Mike Ditka. Those guys used to block and run you over. These are tight ends. Ozzie Newsome. We don't get any of these hardcore tight ends anymore. And then the Shannon Sharps came along and the Bubba Franks and they started spreading it out a little because they were a little smaller and were elusive and could run a little. But we don't even have them anymore. Now we got guys in the slot, or we got trips. Or they're doing the old Houston Oilers, Warren Moon's run and shoot with all those little guys catching hundreds of passes. But the tight end is it's like they're not even around anymore. I remember just being a Cowboy fan, Aikman dumping it off to Novacek, going against the 49ers, Steve Young, dropping it off against Brent Jones. Touchdown, Brent Jones. Touchdown, Jay Novacek. I mean, that was it. And then Jason Witten came along. These guys were, they had experience. They could block, put them in the H-back, put them on the side of that tackle right there, let them kick out, block for some of the screens. You can even put them in slots nowadays, but we just don't have the tight end anymore. Teams are not using them. But let me tell you this. If I was going to talk about tight ends and my top 3 greatest tight ends of all time, I'm going in order. Number 3, I'm going Shannon Sharp. I know he should be 1, but there were a lot of guys that played before him. But I'm going Shannon Sharp. Played 14 seasons, 815 receptions. Talked and backed it up. The guy had 10,060 receiving yards. Went to 8 Pro Bowls and got ringed with Terrell Davis and John Elway and all those guys. But he was a big part of that team. And then later on in his years, he was with the Ray Lewis and Jamal Lewis, the Baltimore Ravens. You got a ring with them. But he had a pretty good career. And I'd say he's in my top 3. And then, of course, I'm going Tony Gonzalez, who made a living with the Kansas City Chiefs. And in his last 5 years, he was with the Atlanta Falcons. But he actually almost had a Super Bowl till Shanahan kind of gave it away. And Tom Brady is now a legend because of it. But yeah, Tony Gonzalez, 17 seasons, 14 Pro Bowl. He was also on the 2000s All-Decade team. Had 1,325 receptions with 15,127 yards receiving and 111 touchdowns. I think that's most by tight ends. But then again, the guy played 17 seasons. And my number 1 is Hall of Famer Kellen Winslow. Yes, not Kellen Winslow Jr., who had an accident on his motorcycle playing for the Cleveland Browns and was in college talking about, I'm a soldier. Go back and look that up on ESPN. You'll get what I'm talking about. But Kellen Winslow Sr. played 9 seasons with the San Diego Chargers. And although the numbers weren't what they were with Shannon Sharp and Tony Gonzalez, it was a different time back then. Guys were running the ball. Running backs were the thing back then. It was just smash mouth, in your face football. But I'm going with Kellen Winslow. He played 9 seasons, 541 career receptions with 6,741 receiving yards. For a tight end, back then, that's good. The guy had 45 touchdowns and went to 5 Pro Bowls, and we all remember that iconic game against Miami in the playoffs when he had 13 receptions, blocked a punt, got out there, was blocking, doing everything. Actually blocked an extra point to send them into overtime. I want to say it was like a double overtime game. I just know the game was for like 2 hours. I remember watching that game. Took him off the field. You guys remember how Jordan was after that flu game? Scottie Pippen holding him up. Get on YouTube and go look at that. Kellen Winslow's overtime game with 13 receptions, being hauled off and carried off the field, being dehydrated. That is a real tight end. Let me know who your favorite tight end is. Past, present, could be a Hall of Fame. Please don't say Hall of Famer Jackie Wilson, the sickest man in America. But anyway, that's my rant for the day. Drop me a comment. Let me know your top tight end. This is the Waters Rant.